Hi everyone, welcome back to Actual English. I'm Jennifer Clyde. Now it's time for lesson 116 and today let's talk about raising children. Now you may be parents out there, you may be expecting to have children in the future, or you may still be single, searching for that perfect match. You're significant, but, well, anyhow, today's topic happens to be raising children. Now, this is a very broad, topic, but today's actual talk is focused more on having babies and then the costs of raising a child or children. Of course, having a baby, sounds simple, but once you have a baby, you bring the baby or babies home, you're going to have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to educate them, and then once they're through school, there's probably a lot more to do as well. Whether your children are 30, 40, or 50, they're still children to you, right? Yes, lots of responsibilities and pressure as well in some cases. Anyhow, let's begin with today's actual talk. Here it is.
Peter, are you feeling the pressures of raising two children these days? Because it's quite expensive.
The cost. Well, if you raise them, put them in a closet and feed them dog food every day, it's probably pretty cheap. But God, no, it's so expensive. Between the strollers and the cribs and all the accoutrement, the hospital
diapers.
Fees, the diapers.
How many do they go through every day?
I don't even try to. I try not to count anymore.
More than 5? I'm genuinely asking.
When they were young, it was like 20 a day, and then it's reduced each 6 months or so. It reduces a little bit, but then the diapers are bigger, so that's more expensive.
Oh, so the bigger diapers are actually more expensive?
Yeah, and less in a box.
I didn't know that.
It kind of works out funny that way.
Because for adult clothing, the bigger the size, it really doesn't matter if it's the same.
Same, yeah. But there are less that can fit in the same size box, so they can charge you the same amount or whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they say that between all the accoutrement, the food, the baby formula, at least we're out beyond formula, but all these other things that you're paying for, the first year is maybe $18,000 in the U.S., and you got to double that for Korea because most of the stuff's imported, car seats and strollers and just. So
you have 2 children. Do you?
Yeah,
does
and
the
you got to
second
double
one
that.
get the hand-me-downs? Do you buy new stuff?
They're wearing things at the same time. There are no hand-me-downs.
Right.
If I had a younger child, maybe.
Yeah.
But our nieces and nephews later will get all the hand-me-downs. I guess we're saving them up.
Yeah, well, my brother was lucky because I'm a girl and he's a boy, so he didn't really get to...
No dresses for him?
No dresses for my brother.
Well, yeah, there's one way to save money, so looking forward to the next kid.
All right, did you enjoy today's actual talk conversation? As I mentioned, these two were specifically talking about the costs of raising a child or children. Joanne asked Peter lots of questions about how much certain things cost and what he was pressured about or what he was stressed out about, right? Well, it's a huge responsibility to raise children, but it's a lovely thing, right? To have your own family and see your children grow up to be adults and to see them succeed and so on and so forth. Anyhow, let's take a look at exactly what they mentioned in today's actual talk conversation. Now, Joanne began by asking a question, or rather, by saying, Peter, are you feeling the pressures of raising 2 children these days? And then she says it's quite expensive. It could be expensive to raise children. But here, as we see, that's our pattern. Feel the pressure or feel the pressure of something. We often say, I'm pressured to do this. It means that you feel a burden. You are stressed because you are expected to do something. So feel the pressure means that you have this huge responsibility. You're feeling pressured, okay? It's some kind of burden, okay? It's not easy. You find difficult to do something. Are you feeling the pressures of raising 2 children these days? Is it difficult to raise children these days? It's quite expensive. And then Peter says, the cost. Boom, there he goes. He mentions money, the cost of raising children. Well, if you put them meaning children, in a closet and feed them, okay, here we go, dog food, feed them dog food every day, it's probably pretty cheap. Now, if you are confused why Peter mentioned this, okay, do not worry. He was joking, okay? He was saying, well, if you have children, if you put them in the closet, and if you feed them dog food, because dog food is relatively cheap, cheaper than baby food, he's saying, well, it'll probably be pretty cheap. It's not going to cost you that much money. Once again, he's joking, okay? But it's so expensive. Now, he's back to reality. Now he's starting to be serious. The strollers and the cribs and all the accoutrements and the hospital fees. He's mentioned just a few, and then he adds the diapers. Wow, how many do we have? Strollers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He has just mentioned a few. 5, but there's so much more to worry about. So many more things that will cost you money. Okay, here, let's go. The strollers. What is a stroller? A stroller is like a chair-like carriage. Usually, you would put babies or little kids, little children, in these chair-like, wheeled chair-like pushies, okay? And you would push them around. So it's a chair you would sit them in and push them around. They're also called baby carriages in some cases, okay? Or pushies. Strollers. And what about cribs? A crib is a baby's bed or a child's bed. Usually, they're surrounded by walls, okay? Just so that the baby does not fall out of the bed. So cribs are baby beds and accoutrements. Accoutrement is just a difficult word for clothing, okay? It also means equipment in some cases. If you're talking about soldiers, we would be talking about clothing and equipment, such as gear even, and hospital fees, and diapers. These all will cost you a lot of money. And then Joanne says, how many do they go through every day? Since he's mentioned diapers, okay, she asks, how many do they? She's talking about diapers. How many diapers do they go through every day? Go through, okay, has many different meanings. You could go through a book, which means to read a book. To finish reading a book, you could go through something, which means to experience something in some cases. But here, she's talking about how many diapers he uses every day, okay? So in this case, we're talking about using something up. How many do they go through every day? How many do they use up every day? Now, Peter says, I don't even try to count anymore. And then he says, well, when they were young, or younger perhaps, it was 20 a day, meaning they used up 20 diapers a day. And then it's reduced, okay? The number decreases. It's reduced each 6 months or so. So every 6 months, okay, they tend to use less diapers. But then, here's the problem. The diapers are bigger. So that's more expensive. This is something I didn't know either. And Joanne says, oh, so the bigger diapers are actually more expensive. Bigger, more expensive. And Peter says, yeah, and there are less in a box. There aren't as many in a box. Yeah, he did even mention that, say for example, diapers for infants, they tend to be smaller than diapers for perhaps 2-year-olds. So you can fit more in a box. There could be 20 diapers in a box because they're little. But as the diapers get bigger, if you put them in the same sized box, perhaps you can only fit 10 diapers in that box. That is exactly what he's saying. There are less in a box. There are less bigger diapers in a box. Joanne says, I didn't know that. For adult clothing, the bigger or smaller the size, it really doesn't matter. That's right. Just because it's bigger doesn't mean it's more expensive. It's more expensive if the quality is better for adult clothing, right? So Peter says, wow, he says a whole bunch of stuff here. He says, but between all the accoutrements, you can also add an S there. He says, the food, the baby formula, at least we are beyond formula. Let's take a look at this sentence here. Okay, he's talking about clothing for the babies, also food for the babies, and baby formula. Formula, you may think of formula, like car racing, for example, but here we're talking about something totally different. Baby formula, or formula sometimes it's even called, is a substitute for breast milk. Okay? Often mothers or parents feed their infants or babies baby formula. They're usually liquid type and fed in bottles, okay? And then he says, at least we are beyond formula. Now, beyond something means to the furthest point or out of a limit. But in this case, it means over or past. So he's saying we have to worry about clothing and food and even baby formula. But at least we are beyond formula. We are done with formula, okay? So we don't have to worry about formula anymore. But all these other things that you're paying for, the first year is maybe $1,800 in the US. We're talking about the US. And you've got to double that for Korea. Why? Because most of the stuff, most of the objects, the things, the products, yeah, they are imported. That's true. So he's giving an example of how much on average it costs to buy baby products in the States. $1,800 in the first year in the US, but in Korea, it's a different story. It costs more money because many of these baby products are imported. So he says you've got to double that, meaning multiply it by 2. Multiply the cost by 2 because the products are imported, okay? And then Joanne says, oh my goodness, you have to double that and you have 2 children. He says, yeah, so you have to double that once again. Now, here she asks a question. Does the second one, meaning the younger one, get hand-me-downs? Okay, as we all know, Peter has 2 sons. They're twins. There's the older one and the younger one. So the older one could be the first one, and the younger one could be called the second one. That's why she says second one. Does the second one, does your younger son, the younger one, get hand-me-downs? What are hand-me-downs? Hand-me-downs are things. It can be clothing. It can be shoes. It can be pretty much anything that's passed down from one person to another. So let's say, for example, I wear this shirt. It's mine, so I wear it, and then once I'm done wearing it, I don't want to wear it anymore. I could pass it down to my sister, my younger sister, or to anybody else. It would be a hand-me-down. Usually, families that have many children, the oldest would wear shoes, clothing, whatever, hats, anything. And when they grow bigger, they can't fit into them. So they hand them down to the younger ones. And the clothing or those objects or products are called hand-me-downs, okay? He says, well, they're wearing things at the same time. Why? Because they're twins, right? If I had a younger child, maybe our nieces and nephews later will get all the hand-me-downs. So he's saying that his nieces and nephews will get the hand-me-downs. We're saving them. So them, of course, he's talking about all the clothes, okay? The hand-me-downs. Joanne says, yeah, well, my brother was lucky. Why? Because he's a boy. That's right. Let's move on. Peter says, yeah, no dresses for him. no dresses for him. You can't hand down a dress to a boy because boys don't wear dresses, right? So she says, no dresses for my brother. And Peter finally says, well, there's one way to save money. I'm so looking forward to the next kid. So he has just given us some information about his plans to have another child, perhaps his third child. So there's one way to save money. He's just talking about saving money by not buying new things, but perhaps saving money by having more children and passing down items from the older one to the younger ones. Okay, hope you enjoyed today's dialogue. Let's take a listen to today's actual talk conversation one more time.
Peter, are you feeling the pressures of raising two children these days? Because it's getting quite expensive.
The cost. Well, you know, if you raise them, you know, put them in a closet and feed them dog food every day, it's probably pretty cheap. But God, no, it's so expensive. Between the strollers and the cribs and all the accoutrement, the hospital
diapers.
Fees, the diapers.
How many do they go through every day?
I don't even try to. I try not to count anymore.
More than 5? I'm genuinely asking.
When they were young, it was like 20 a day, and then it's reduced each 6 months or so. It reduces a little bit, but then the diapers are bigger, so that's more expensive.
Oh, so the bigger diapers are actually more expensive?
Yeah, and less in a box. You know,
I didn't
it kind
know
of works
that.
out funny that
because
way.
For adult clothing, the bigger the size, it really doesn't matter if it's the same.
Same, yeah. But there are less that can fit in the same size box, so they can charge you the same amount or whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they say that between all the accoutrement, the food, the baby formula, you know, at least we're
That's
beyond
important.
formula, but all these other things that you're paying for. The first year is maybe $18,000 in the U.S., and you got to double that for Korea because most of the stuff's imported. Car seats and strollers and just.
So you have 2 children. Do you?
Yeah, and
does the
you gotta
second one get
double
the
that.
hand-me-downs? Do you buy new
They're
stuff
wearing
or the
things at the same time. There are no hand-me-downs.
Right.
If I had a younger child, maybe.
Yeah.
But you know, our nieces and nephews later will get all the hand-me-downs. I guess we're saving them up.
Yeah, well, my brother was lucky because I'm a girl and he's a boy, so he didn't really get to...
No dresses for him?
No dresses for my brother.
Well, yeah, there's one way to save money, so looking forward to the next kid.
Are you ready to go over the vocab words and the patterns we learned today or went through in today's actual talk? Okay, think of this segment as kind of a review. To refresh your mind, to refresh your memory, see how much you remember. So we had words such as stroller, crib, and accoutrements, which is a quite difficult word, but stroller. Some synonyms are buggy, carriage, also called a baby carriage or even a pushchair. Okay, it's also called a pushchair because, as I mentioned, it's usually 4-wheeled and it's a chair like, I guess, yeah, it's a chair that you can push with a baby sitting in it. So that's a stroller, buggy, carriage, or pushchair. A crib is a child's bed, a baby's bed, usually with 4 sides to protect them from falling out of the bed. It's also called a cot or a cradle. But usually a cradle is smaller in size and you can often rock it. Okay, swing it or rock it so it moves. Accoutrements. It is used in the singular form but also in the plural form as well with an S, so keep that in mind. Accoutrements. Accoutrements. It's a difficult word. Accoutrements. Just means gear, garment, or clothes. Okay, just remember that. We had formula or baby formula. Now, formula. We're talking about a substitute for breast milk, right? Infants usually, they have formula in bottles. Okay, so that's formula. And hand-me-down. Hand-me-down or second-hand, used, passed down, or even worn or outgrown clothes that's passed down from an older child perhaps to a younger child. Okay, now that we're done with the vocab words, let's now move on to the 3 patterns for today. The first one is feel the pressure. In the beginning of today's actual talk, Joanne asked Peter about how, if he was feeling the pressure of raising 2 children. Feel the pressure, feeling the burden of something, okay? I felt extra pressure. Feel, past, felt extra pressure to do better in my senior year of high school. So we can tell if you feel pressure or the pressure of doing something, it is not an easy task. It is rather difficult. So I felt extra pressure to do better. I had this burden. I knew I had to. I was stressed in some cases. I felt the extra pressure to do better in my senior year of high school. What about this one? I'm feeling the pressure. We're talking about right now, at the moment. I'm feeling the pressure to do better at work. Okay, why? I heard talk about downsizing. Downsizing means to decrease the number of. So for example, if a company is downsizing, they are talking about or thinking about perhaps firing a few of their employees. Okay, lessening the number of employees on their payroll. I'm feeling the pressure to do better at work. I know I have to do better at work. I heard talk about downsizing. Go through something. As I mentioned, it could mean to experience. It could mean to read a book, for example. If you say, I went through 2 books, it means I finished reading 2 books. But in today's actual talk conversation, it means to use up. That's right. We were talking about going through diapers. I used to go through 3 cans of hairspray a week in the 80s. I think this is true for many people because back in the 80s when I was in school, I used so much hairspray. I would use up at least 3 to 4 cans of hairspray a week. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's true. So I used to, in the past, go through, use up, finish up 3 cans of hairspray a week in the 80s. We went through 8 different bottles before I found the perfect one. We're talking about baby bottles. My baby refused every other bottle out there. So we went through. It can also mean to experience, but you tried 8 different bottles until you found the perfect one. And here we go with beyond, our very last pattern, beyond, okay? As I mentioned in today's actual talk conversation, it meant what? Okay, try to figure it out in the sentence. I am beyond words, okay? Now, beyond in today's actual talk meant past, over, for example. But in this case, you are saying, I am out of words. I cannot find any words to express my feelings. I am speechless, for example. I am beyond words. What about this one? She is beautiful beyond words. Beautiful beyond words. In this case, you are stressing the fact that this female, this woman is so beautiful. So beyond is often used to emphasize something, okay? In this case, you're emphasizing the beauty of this woman. She is beautiful beyond words. I cannot express in words how beautiful she is. All right, job well done. That is a wrap for today's actual expressions.